Shalom, everyone. I'm happy to share this mini Shiur with you in honor of Yom Ha'atzmaut, which we will begin celebrating tonight. And I want to start with a special invitation for everyone watching this video to attend our Yom Ha'atzmaut celebration, which starts at 6:25 tonight at UOS with Mincha. Every year, our Yom Ha'atzmaut celebration is a wonderful and joyous event. We have a very meaningful Tekes Ma'avar ceremony that moves us from Yom HaZikaron, from Memorial Day for fallen Israeli soldiers, to Yom Ha'atzmaut, to the great joy of celebrating the establishment of the State of Israel, followed by a festive Mariv with song and joy and dancing and singing, and then we all come together for a Su'udat Hoda'ah, a meal of thanksgiving, in gratefulness to God for the establishment of the State of Israel. So please join us here tonight at UOS at 6:25 p.m. And now to some comments to the mini Shiur about Yom Ha'atzmaut. There are many acts of redemption that are written about and spoken about with relation to Yom Ha'atzmaut. I'd like to share with you some ideas and perhaps read for you a few sentences or a paragraph here and there from some powerful works and important thinkers regarding Yom Ha'atzmaut. So what was redeemed on Yom Ha'atzmaut? What was brought back into the center of life that had been on the periphery of life? Because that's what redemption means. Redemption means something is on the sidelines and is brought back into the center. So on the most basic level, and this does not mean it's unimportant, this actually may be the most important, is that the Jewish people were redeemed. After the horrors of the Shoah, after the horrors of the Holocaust, the Jews needed an act of redemption. This is the way, one of the ways that Rabbi Yehuda Amital focuses on the Shoah, and this is how Chief Rabbi Isaac Halevi Herzog, Yitzchak Halevi Herzog, focused on the Shoah. Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, in his book The Jewish Way, makes the following comment about how Rabbi Herzog approached Yom Ha'atzmaut. He says as follows: after the establishment of the state, the first chief rabbi of Israel, Isaac Halevi Herzog, was roundly challenged for endorsing the establishment of the state that he knew would have to operate in violation of Jewish law in many areas of political and economic life. Rabbi Herzog's honest answer was that the criticisms were correct, but he knew only one big truth: that after the Holocaust, the Jewish people could not go on living and believing without some great redemption. And that's the first approach to the Shoah, to the establishment of the State of Israel, and that it redeemed the Jewish people, that the Jewish people were injured. We were a wounded people after the Shoah, and we needed something to heal our wounds. We needed something to bring us back to life. And what brought us back to life was the establishment of the State of Israel. Rabbi Soloveitchik makes a similar point in his well-known work, Kol Dodi Dofek, when he also notes that so many people had lost faith, so many people had lost their connection to Judaism, that not only was the body of the Jewish people hurt, as Rabbi Herzog noted, but the spirit, the neshama of the Jewish people was hurt, and that the establishment of the State of Israel reconnected Jews to Judaism. And Rabbi Soloveitchik is correct. Even to this day, for many people, their primary connection to Judaism, their primary connection to Jewish history and the Jewish faith is through their connection to the State of Israel. So the Jewish people were redeemed when Jewish life was brought back into the center and we were no longer seen as a weak, wounded people. And the Jewish soul, the Jewish spirit was redeemed as there was now a renewed connection between Jews and Judaism. And Rabbi Soloveitchik goes on to say that there was political redemption and military redemption and cultural redemption and theological redemption, and Rabbi Soloveitchik's article is well known. Eliezer Berkovitz argues that not only that besides the Jewish people being redeemed and the Jewish neshama being redeemed, he argues that halakha itself was redeemed. That until the establishment of the State of Israel, halakha was in exile, because halakha was working on someone else's terms, on the terms of whatever country Jews found themselves. Halakha had to find a way to cope with life outside of a Jewish center. But now, with the establishment of the State of Israel, halakha was once again redeemed. And these are some of his words. The classical purpose of halakha is to shape the Jewish realities of the life of a people. In the Galut, halakha is confronted with problems, needs, and demands of non-Jewish realities, forced upon a people scattered into communities in the midst of cultures and civilizations alien to the spirit and ideals of Judaism. But when a country is built based on the ideas and ideals of Judaism, there is a much greater possibility that halakha could be at the center, that halakha can address the life of a full, whole nation, not the life of peripheral parts of the nation. And he goes on to say, in meeting the challenge of a comprehensive Jewish civilization, halakha develops its creative originality. It is for this reason that this statement could be made that there is no Torah like the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. Ein Torah ki Torat Eretz Yisrael. The Torah needs the call from the autonomous reality of the Jewish people in halachic response to the needs and problems of that reality. It is enabled to speak the timely word of its eternal wisdom in each changing situation. So for Eliezer Berkovitz, halakha was redeemed. According to Rabbi David Hartman, not only was halakha redeemed, but Jewish ethics and morals were redeemed. Because as he notes in Shemot, chapter 19:6, the Jews are called Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And therefore, if the Torah, says Hartman, is truly capable of sanctifying every aspect of human reality, if it is capable of giving new moral and spiritual dimensions to politics, if its ways are ways of pleasantness and all its paths are peace, deracheha darchei noam, v'chol netivoteha shalom, if the Torah scholar is a paradigm of the builder of peace, this must be done and confirmed through the way we live our daily lives and not only proclaimed in our prayers. The establishment of the State of Israel allowed Jewish ethics and morals to once again become governing policy for an entire nation, for the notion of peace, for the notion of holiness, to once again be woven into the political and social reality of the Jewish people, and that was only possible with the establishment of the State of Israel. Daniel Gordis, who's writing from a political perspective, writes that the establishment of the State of Israel made clear the following. Israel is not just a Hebrew-speaking, falafel-eating version of the United States, in which the goal is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Israel is a country by the Jews, of the Jews, for the Jews. It was created for a distinct purpose, Jewish healing and ultimately Jewish flourishing. And so similar to Rabbi Hartman, Danny Gordis notes that the full aspect, the full effect of Jewish life can only really be seen in a Jewish country, in a place where the culture of even not irreligious or debate having nothing to do with religion has the ability to have a Jewish flavor. And so, for example, he notes that when the very difficult situation of deciding how to redeem Gilad Shalit was a real issue in Israel, not only was that discussed from a military and social perspective, but people would call in to regular radio stations, regular radio shows, not the religious radio stations in Israel, and quote the Talmud and quote religious sources as why Gilad Shalit should be redeemed at a high price or why he should not be redeemed at a high price. And Gordis argues, and I think it's true, that could only happen in a culture which is fully Jewish. And so Gordis argues that the nation-state of Israel is the only place where the full Jewish culture can be protected, and not only protected, but the full Jewish culture can thrive. Not only for people who are committed to ritual and Jewish observance, but for all people who want our Jewish history and our Jewish literature and our Jewish sensibilities to be part of a conversation, an entire conversation. And finally, let me share with you some words from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Every year around Yom Ha'atzmaut, I focus on another work of Zionism. And this year I focused on Israel, an echo of eternity. written by Abraham Joshua Heschel. And he makes such beautiful and poetic points in his work on Israel. But what he talks about here is that while we've talked about halakha being redeemed and Jewish morals being redeemed and the Jewish social reality being redeemed, what Rabbi Heschel says is that hope was redeemed. This is what he says. The inspiration that goes out of Zion today is the repudiation of despair and the example of renewal. The dreadful experiences of the past 100 years, far from having poisoned us with a sense of despair, have on the contrary evoked in us the vigor of hope and of resolve for renewal. Our existence is a repudiation of the thought that man in history lives toward death. Our very existence is a witness that man must live toward redemption. And Heschel goes on to say that the establishment of the State of Israel proved that history was not over. He says history cannot come to an end as long as the promise exists. The people in whose very being the sense of history is embedded, in whose existence the promise and the hope continue to be alive, and to whose commitments the challenges are due, which have put mankind on the road toward a universal order of peace under law, is now visible as a concrete political entity. The concrete political entity, of course, is the State of Israel, and it shows that history does not come to an end as long as the promise exists. And so when the Jewish people kept that promise of returning to Zion alive for thousands of years, and when finally that promise was realized and became a reality, as Heschel said, it proved that we do not have to live with despair, and that history is not just marching on to our demise, but that history leads toward a place of redemption. And while we can't always, with absolute certainty, see God's fingerprints, Rabbi Heschel argues that from time to time we have no choice but to see God, the strands of God in the unfolding of history, and that we should not take for granted our attempts to see God as history unfolds. And so these are some of the areas that were redeemed with the establishment of the State of Israel. And I'm sure some of them appeal to you, and perhaps some of them do not appeal to you. But hopefully at least one of them appeals to you. And hopefully one of them appeals to you enough to celebrate with us tonight, and not with us only, but to celebrate in your own neshama, in your own heart, the great event which was the establishment of the State of Israel. I hope everyone has a meaningful Yom HaZikaron, a meaningful day in which today is the day we memorialize those Israeli soldiers who fell in the establishment and the defense of the State of Israel, and those who were taken from us through acts of terror, and that we could move from this day which reminds us of despair and death to a day that reminds us of hope, and a day that reminds us of redemption, Yom HaAtzmaut, which we will begin celebrating tonight at 6:25. Again, I wish everyone a meaningful Yom HaZikaron and a wonderful and joyous Yom HaAtzmaut. Chag HaAtzmaut Sameach. Shalom.